Hey, welcome to I'm Just Not That Into Games. Though it could easily have been called I'm Just Not Getting Any Likes on YouTube, I'm Just Not Getting Any Reviews on iTunes, or I'm Just Not Getting Any People liking my Facebook page, because all those things are happening as well.
Alright, so the game for this week is 80 Days. It's a mobile game that's also got a PC port, and it's been developed by Inkle Studios, and it's based on the intellectual property of Jules Verne. In this one, you'll be playing as Passepartout, as you're escorting Phileas Fogg around the world in 80 days. The famous story, he took a bet, see if he can get around the world in 80 days, and your goal is to help that happen. It's quite a simple little game. There's a lot to it despite that, though. It's more of a choose-your-own-adventure story combined with a couple of gameplay mechanics, and it has a cool little steampunk aesthetic to wrap the whole thing home. So I think you'd enjoy it, so let's go.
You know that I've considered a few of the games we've played as kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure.
I thought as much, and I thought, well, let's just play one of those and see if we can, come to an agreement regarding this debate.
I know. So what I'm wondering is your version of what a choose-your-own-adventure is and your version of what not a choose-your-own-adventure is. Mm-hmm. I'm really interested to see. Now, of course, I know the story of Around the World in 80 Days. I've seen, probably about 4 different versions of it by now.
Yeah, there's heaps.
Yeah,
it's famous.
So I wouldn't say that I loved it, but it's a decent old story. So yeah, I want to be very interested to see. I'm just interested to see in what you think a choose your own adventure is, because you've clearly given me some choose your own adventures already, which you said were games. So,
well, we'll just see. All right, Andy. So, did you make it around the world?
I did. I made it around the world.
Did you do it in 80 days, though?
No, I didn't. But look, let me walk you through my experience with this game. Mm-hmm. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Good.
Maybe.
Oh.
So, the opening of the game I thought was spectacular, right? And it reminded me of a movie. It made me think this game was going to be more movie than game. And of course, previously, you'd sort of set it up to me. Well, not sort of. You had literally set it up to me as, this is a choose-your-own-adventure. I know you say some of these games are choose-your-own-adventure, but here's a choose-your-own-adventure. But, you gave me a little bit of, there's going to be some interesting stuff, some interesting narrative stuff here. So I'm like, okay, fair enough. Mm-hmm. So when I first started, I was just reading a lot. Now, I know this game is based on a book, and I understand a book is all about reading and nothing else, but there was just a lot of text being thrown at me in the start of the game. And it's just like, hey, this is happening. Now this is happening. Here's some information for later. Here's some more information. So even just 10 minutes in the game, I'm feeling overwhelmed by how many things I need to click on and how many things I need to remember. And there seems to be a lot of things that are going to matter here, there, and everywhere. Mm-hmm. But a little later on, pretty soon after, I took a journey just before it did show me relevant bits of conversation to that route. So maybe the game will give my memory a break from trying to store everything it's trying to tell me. And you know what? I pretty much found that I didn't need to remember much. I never felt like my hand was being held too much, but I kind of didn't need to keep a diary of everything I've been told. There feels like there's a lot of hooks in this game to other storylines.
Yeah, so firstly, it does a lot of things with when you find out about a route, it puts it on the map. So when you're zooming out to try and decide where to go next, you can sort of see ahead depending on how you've been chatting. So, the more you explore, the more you get a better idea of where you're going next, which, it makes it more interesting and more vibrant. But you don't need to remember absolutely every detail about every single city or anything. But it just helps you with the UI. And then with the hooks for the other plot, there's heaps of different plots that come and go, and apparently in different playthroughs you can get different sort of variants on some of those common stories, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so I felt there's kind of a after we got through the initial canon sort of, this is the Round the World, because look, I said before when you were telling me about the game, I've actually seen this done probably about 4 times, so I'm pretty familiar with the story. I think everyone is at this stage familiar with 80 Days Around the World. But once we got past the first initial bit,
they did start to. I could see where they were branching away from the main storyline, and there was sort of these sort of revolutionaries. There was a few revolutionaries. There's some kind of magical thing with the Artificers Guild, and definitely that steampunky thing. The problem I had with that, and it was good, but that I never really engaged with any of it, and I wasn't trying not to, and I was sort of I was trying to, but it never made it clear how I would get to any of those storylines.
Yeah, and I guess since you're so focused on getting around the world in 80 days, you're not really going, oh, let's go for a detour.
Yeah, because that clock's just ticking, right? Like that clock's ticking and it's forcing you on. So I like the idea. I really did. I like the idea, but then I was like, but why would I muck around here when you're clearly telling me I need to get going? Like I'd get hints from the storyline, like I need to get going. So to be honest, I played this game quite a bit longer than other games I've played. I mean, there's a couple of notable exceptions there, but I did feel like I wanted to finish it, and I did finish it. And you know, I just made it to Singapore, and there was an incident along the way that was really interesting, and I found most of the game to be mildly interesting, but there's bits where it really did take off, and there's this incident that, and I know the game's on rails, but like this thing happened in Singapore, and I'm not going to give it away for anyone, but just I really did have to sort of manage my way out of the situation rather than just sort of a light touch manage. Yeah.
Yeah.
But by the time I got to the US, I'd exceeded the 80-day mark. It's amazing how quickly my interest dropped in the game once the 80-day mark was
reached.
Yeah. It just began to get a bit of a grind. Like, I just need to find a thing to get to the next thing. And I was like...
You've already lost those, so what do I continue?
What do I continue? And then, because I didn't go back and play the game again, I totally think another playthrough would be a total grind. Because at that point, after 80 days, I was sort of like, this is not that interesting. I don't have to do much with this sort of trading goods and whatnot that's in the game. Yeah, I just... You know, there was one bit which really summed the game up about how tedious I'd found it getting. There's this boxing match you take part in,
right?
But you just click the text line for the next punch you want to throw,
right?
So it's a one-on-one fighter with people just clicking text links in turn. It's just ridiculous.
It's become so bluntly aware that it's just a story at that point, right?
Yeah, that's right. And the finishing screen showed me all my stats and encouraged me to do it again. But like I said, I was done.
I think I had a bit of a different experience because when I played through it, the very first time I played through it, I got to just outside of London at the 80-day mark and was like, no, I've screwed up. Oh, I've just, if I had done that over in that city, I would have had a little bit more money. I would have been able to get there. And then, like, true to the story, forgot about the international date timeline. Actually got there on the 81st day, which technically still won the game because you still get that extra day. I was like, that's a really cool little detail that fit that story so perfectly. So I think I had like an emergent moment from the game that was pretty cool. But once I finished it and got to that point of, I beat the game, I did it, I just, like you, I didn't feel like any motivation to play the game again, even though there was lots of cool stories and lots of ideas of things to go, but... Yeah, it just didn't really make me go, ooh, let's jump in again, let's do it again. It is quite a tiring sort of game to play after a while.
Yeah, so, and here's what I think about it, right? This is at best, mildly interesting story. Like, they've tried their best with the material they had, and they've tried to add to it, but they haven't added to it that well. And it is really not interesting at times. But I've got to hand it to him. On this experience that I had with this game. This is a testament to the power of great UI. Like, the sound and the graphics are not high-end, but they are high-end. They're
just right.
Aren't they amazing? Like again, I don't really see this as a... This was... an okay, entertaining experience from something which should have been batshit boring. And
absolutely.
And I think anyone who's studying UI or UX, like any designer, even working in the field, and if they've not seen this, like this is the definition of polishing a turd.
Yeah, and I think there's, to give credit, there is some good writing in it. There's some good ideas in it. And there's some really, really interesting stuff in it. And I really wanted to like it more than I did as well. Like,
me too.
Because it's got a lot of charm. The little, drawings of each of the ships and different vehicles that you do. It's not much, but it's just enough to make you go, wow, that's really, what is this thing that I'm running on? What's going on here?
Yeah. I know. And it feels in that way. Part of it feels like a little bit of a missed opportunity because they're obviously talented. They've obviously done great things. It's just maybe I kept thinking to myself, 80 days around the world in 80 days, you could, like, if you'd picked the Bible, maybe you would have picked a story that's been done more. You could not have picked a story that had been done and overdone. And I know why people do it. It's because, it's
exciting. It's got a ticking clock at the end of the day that you can always have pushing the story along.
Well, and also it gives people structure. It's like a low risk because, hey, people like Around the World in 80 days. We should do, if we do that, at least some people will buy the game, right?
Yep.
But I feel like they're good enough to do an original story. And if they had an original story in that and found... it doesn't have to be a race around the world. I know that gives it a good framework to drive you forward through the story, but I don't think they really need such a rigid framework to drive you through the story. If it's a choose your own adventure, none of them were around the world in 80 days, and they were still able to
I'm sure there would have been one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there would have been a couple, but again, so...
Yeah, no. And I feel like because the scope of the game, right? Like there's so many cities in there. There's so many different routes you can take. There's so many different plot hooks that come in and out that you kind of feel like if the game was more condensed into a version of it that you'd want to just play through once and have most of the experience, that you would really enjoy it, or have some way to make it more... Yeah, I guess because you're just visiting different cities, you're still achieving the same goal. There's no sense that you need to replay the game.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you can take a different route, but if you solved it, or you're like, in my case, I was like, yeah, I could totally do this in 80 days, but because I could totally do it, I feel like I've already done it. Right?
Yeah. There's no, if you did it again and you succeeded, great, and if you didn't, well, you're like,
Yeah, but I would totally go back to saying, which was, like you said, a more condensed thing, and I work my way through it because that's just what you do when you these kind of go from one step to another. I have this experience, but then I work my way through it again, and I have a completely different experience because
different goals, different avenues, different story.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, yeah. So look, kind of enjoyed my time.
Would you recommend it?
Look, if you're a designer, like seriously, I would recommend it as like it's totally a career move. Like you should sit down with this, examine what they've done, know that you can do so many things with UI to improve an experience, and it's not just blah 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 people talking at some conference about it. This is living in the flesh.
Exactly. I'd also recommend it to people that like to explore branching narratives in a different way, because it's a very simple expression of it, but it does a lot of things in there that are pretty clever. I like the way that it does the text things where you choose the next start of the next sentence and then the sentence continues. It's a small little detail like that just made it like really pop. And there's lots of little things that you can do in the storytelling, and I think there's some interesting writing in there that goes beyond the pale of what typically exists within most common literature that was kind of customized for games that seemed quite subtle at first.
No, I totally want to call out that point about choosing the start of the sentence, and you just made me remember it. What a clever idea! You take a back and forth, like I say this and you say that, which is very engaging by itself when done well. But then, you start a sentence and you change the timbre of your own conversation in a different, and still just picking another bit of text, but it's a different. It's really clever.
And because it's the start, you don't fully know what's going to happen, and you're just like, I'm more interested to see the start of the sentence that it begins with, I pull out my sword rather than I run away. So we'll do that.
So and then you're like, and the character's going to do what they're going to do, and I hope it's the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. There's lots of subtlety in the game, I think, that's made it quite an enjoyable experience, despite the fact that it should be something that you play for 10 minutes and go, this is terrible.
Yeah, I know.
By all accounts, it should be a terrible game, but I think it's pretty good.
We should make a game like this, Sam.
Yeah? What,
Maybe.
were you just talking? You talk the start of the sentences, and we choose which one,
Yes.
which complaint you have for the game today.
Yes. Oh, well, you know. Anyway, yeah, it could be good. Yeah. If you've made it this far through the podcast, just know that this audio doesn't come for free. And the way you can pay us, the way you can show us your love is rate and review us on iTunes. That's number one. Like, thumbs up or thumbs down. We don't care on YouTube and leave a comment. Share it with your friends. Like our Facebook page. Get on there. Leave a comment. And you know what? Give us some love on SoundCloud. Your dogs.
Anyway, here's Ultrafeedy.
Touch